Linus recently uploaded another video about Framework and his investment update. And from the thumbnail and the title, it just kind of makes you think, oh, this is going to be a negative video about this. But when you watch the video, it was all pretty much positive. But this really brings into question a lot of things with me. Is Framework going to be sustainable into the future? And I kind of have a feeling that this is in the back of a lot of people's minds, especially when Linus is almost single-handedly carrying the marketing for this company. How many people would really know or even have Framework on their radar if Linus didn't bring it to the mainstream audience or just show it to people? Are they going to be sustainable into the future from a business perspective, not an environmental perspective? We're going to talk about that later. Especially when you go to like their YouTube channels, typically where you upload like your advertisements and stuff. I watched this one, and this is announcing for the Framework Laptop 16, which Linus was talking about in his video. And this is what this advertisement was. We'll just watch through it real quick.
Right on cue. Wait, you can do that?
Obviously a satisfying advertisement to watch. It didn't get across what you wanted it to get across. What were the advantages of being able to click things in and out? I needed to like see it a little bit longer. That I think their marketing team and their content creation team could probably just use a little bit more like time in the oven, and then they'll probably get their footing a little bit more. It goes to show, like, if I didn't watch the Linus video displaying that you could like take out the keyboard and move it to the left, or put a numpad in, or you could put these little like LED strips on the side of it, or wood grain accents on your laptop, it would have been pretty hard to understand what the point of this was. It's almost like you need to be deeper into the tech community or more of a deeper fan to even understand what Framework is doing. And I think that's their main problem. They're almost appealing to a niche of a niche. So it's kind of like a big Matryoshka doll. When you get to the level of people that will buy Framework laptops, it's getting pretty small at that point. First, you have to think about you're appealing to people that buy laptops. Now, not everybody will buy a laptop. Some people will get tablets or just desktop PCs, but that's still a big group of people. A lot of people buy laptops. It's not uncommon by any means. But then on top of that, Framework laptops appeal to people that understand the components inside of their computers. Like, do you understand what kind of CPU is in it? Do you understand what the display is? When the advantage of getting a Framework is being able to upgrade it to better components later on down the line and saving yourself some money on the back end. But there's still one more Matryoshka doll to this. You have to get people buying your product that are actually willing to upgrade their laptops. I know to the geeks and everything that this really appeals to is gonna be like, that's no big deal, I'll open it up, I'll replace a drive, I'll put in more RAM. Average person, average consumer, which is gonna make you the most money as a company, most people are pretty scared about going into their computer. They have a marketplace set up where you'd say you could buy new keyboards. If you wanted to upgrade your system and it's a speed, then you could buy a new CPU, a new integrated graphics as well. That Framework as a company doesn't actually make money if you don't buy these components. Yes, they do cost a premium over other laptops. Say, for example, here we have the laptop with an i7 1260p, has 16 gigabytes of memory and 512 gigabytes of SSD storage and assembled for you. You can actually get a DIY version where they give you the pieces and you build it yourself. But for the average consumer, I'm going to use this version of it that comes pre-assembled. That is $1,250. I saw another HP Envy, which is a 15-inch version, which is closer in size. You get 16 gigabytes of RAM, but same CPU, and you get a terabyte SSD instead as well. Framework, it's asking another almost $300 for their laptop. So the value perspective for the mainstream audience doesn't really seem like it's there. See, it's almost weird because the Frameworks are more expensive than other laptops, but I still don't think that they're making a huge margin on these. And that is because they're a startup company that it has to make this standardized system that can support all of these different components and be user replaceable. So typically their laptops are a little bit thicker, and they put a lot of thought into their systems to make it as easy as possible for the end user to get into it and replace things. Repairability and upgradability for the end user is their main goal as a company. And they're going to make more money from the customers that they sell you as many things as possible down the line. So from a sustainability standpoint, that is where Framework's business model lies. Let's check out some options here about what kind of upgrade path you could take realistically. Because if you buy the base model of the 13-inch laptop that they have out right now, the other ones have not released as of yet, it comes with an i5 12400P. So you're almost looking at $1,000 of the Framework for the same spec. And this is on sale right now. It's $100 off. Don't know how long that's going to last. Compared to ones of a very similar spec at like $700 to $750. So that is the base model. Let's just say in a hypothetical scenario that you're going to upgrade your Framework and capitalize on that advantage that Framework has, that you can just buy a new board for it and upgrade your CPU down the line. So let's say you want to speed things up later. What's really nice about Framework, and I completely applaud them for this, they make it very mainstream. They just say all these boards here, all these are going to be compatible with your laptop, which makes it so easy because there are other competitors that have done similar things to this. And the most prevalent one I can think of is the Lenovo ThinkPad. And those laptops have been historically very upgradable, but it is hard to find what is compatible with those laptops. So you end up kind of struggling to see it, like, oh, sometimes there is a socket that you could upgrade your CPU in, but what CPUs are compatible, how much cooling can it handle, what RAM is compatible. It makes it hard. Whereas Framework makes it very easy. You go to their marketplace and it's like all this stuff is compatible. You don't have to worry about it. Now, I do wonder in the future when they start to innovate on their laptops, is this going to get confusing eventually? And I hope that they manage things properly, that it doesn't. But let's get back to this example. 1240p, which there's different options of what you would want to upgrade it to. But the most logical progression is honestly probably the next generation i7. So I think you're most likely looking at like an i7 1360p. And just from my perspective, you're looking at $700 for a mainboard upgrade. At the same time, you're going to want to upgrade your RAM as well. So honestly, you're probably looking at about $750 to $800. And that's getting pretty pricey pretty fast. Just that mainboard upgrade is as much as this entire laptop. Total with the Framework, you're in $950 for the base model, and then to upgrade those other things, I'm gonna estimate that your upgrade probably be around $800 depending on sales and everything. You're in like $1,700 for that laptop, whereas you could almost buy just 2 whole laptops for that price. And I know from an environmental sustainability perspective that it's like, oh, you're throwing out things with that. If I'm being honest with Framework's like perspective on this, they advertise that you can take your old main board out and you can put it into another system. Like say you can make it a home theater console or something like that. But I struggle to see that as being a sensible option for a lot of people. Well, to spend even more and get the adapter to put your main board into it to make it like a freestanding PC. I don't know how many people have a use for that and want to spend even more money just to do that, because you're looking at like a little console for your TV, and technically speaking, you're probably taking out about $400 to $500 out of your computer and putting it there, and then putting in another $50 case, whereas you could get an Apple TV for a lot less. So from a value perspective to the end consumer, I think it's getting pretty hard to justify the price premium for the Framework product. I know that they're a startup company and they need to make money on this stuff to become profitable, and over time, hopefully things will get cheaper, especially those main boards. That's what's really expensive. But it's all that research and development that has to go into that. Like every single main board has to be custom built because they need them all to be the exact same size and have the exact same IO layout, or they won't be able to put it into their other laptops. And then you lose that framework that they've been building up. And none of this is to discredit Framework for everything that they've done. I think they're making a great ecosystem that is very upgradable in the future, and it gives me confidence that you buy a product and you can use it for years and years to come, which from a laptop perspective usually almost never happens. But it does get to a point where they can't just be a virtuous company where they're doing things and people are almost donating their money and their support like a charitable cause for like protecting the environment and protecting our right to repair and stuff. There has to be a point when their products appeal very well to the mainstream audience, that it gets lifted up and taken off. If you want to be a successful company, you have to get to that mainstream audience, make it easy to access and enter into it, and not scare people away. I find that Framework is in a similar position to what Arc is. Arc is in its first generation, and it needs people to support it right now so that they can continue research and development on the product and that they have hope for it. Arc, like, it can't last forever like that. It can't always just be like almost like a charity. Like, people have to want it. Mainstream audience has to want it and not be scared of it. And I'm super down for what Framework is doing. They have a good message and a good mission, and I think that they will be successful in the future, but they do need to work on a few things. They need to start to kind of get their costs down. I know that like eats into their margins, so I want their margins to stay good, but then also they need to get their costs down. The only way to really do that is to make them as popular as possible, because you can start working with bigger companies and get things custom built for your laptop specifically. And this would help it appeal to the mainstream audience that mostly cares about bang for their buck for their components. I mean, I would say that's probably about 95% of people. Or else they'll just never be competitive with like the MacBooks or the Dells or Acers or Asus's laptops of the world. You can't just be a virtuous company, unfortunately, unless you want to stay always locked into this niche, which I'm hoping that they don't want to do that. I want them to be a big company. It's a personal gripe of mine, but when I was watching the Linus video and they were unclipping things and moving like the keyboard around and everything, wow, I would probably only ever set my keyboard up in one way and then never touch it again. And the fact that they had to use all of this engineering time to make all those clips and everything, wow, I don't want to pay for that. I know, like, I'm consciously aware, where as a consumer, that I'm paying for features that I'm never going to use, and I really want them as a company to focus on the bang for the buck for their product and really lean into, oh, you can upgrade this and you can get better performance in the future for a little cost. I am aware that those customization things are the things that will make them money as a company, but I don't want those engineering costs being passed on to the consumer as much as possible. That's a personal preference thing. And then the last thing is that they really need to work on their marketing. I'm sorry, but they need their own independent presence, like away from like Linus Tech Tips. You can't rely on your investor to advertise for your product. That doesn't give me that much confidence that they have an identity as a company and that they know what they want to lean into. I want to see things that interact with the community way more than they are right now. Do you have confidence in Framework as a company going forward? I don't know how to feel. Yeah, let's talk about it. See you in the next one. Peace.